The Brooklyn Federal Courthouse wasn't where Olivia Chen expected to spend her Tuesday afternoon, but then again, nothing about the last 72 hours had gone according to plan. She sat on the hard wooden bench in the hallway outside courtroom 4C, her laptop bag digging into her shoulder and her phone vibrating with messages she didn't have the emotional bandwidth to answer. Through the frosted glass doors, she could hear the muffled rhythm of proceedings, a judge's measured tones, a lawyer's objections, the shuffle of defendants entering pleas she couldn't make out. 3 days ago, she'd been finalizing quarterly reports for Hartwell Capital's legitimate investment portfolio. 3 days ago, the biggest problem in her life had been whether to renew her lease in Astoria or finally give in and move to Jersey City for cheaper rent. 3 days ago, her sister had been engaged. Now, her sister was in WITSC, her stepmother was in federal custody, and Olivia was about to become the wife of a man she'd never met. She pulled out her phone and stared at the message from her father for the dozenth time. Meeting at 4. Federal prosecutors have approved the arrangement. It's the only way to protect the company and you. I know you're angry. I know you have every right to be. But Vanessa is gone, and the Vales are not people we can afford to disappoint. Just hear them out, please. Olivia had stopped being angry around hour 30, somewhere between learning her stepsister had fled to God knows where and discovering that the marriage contract her father's legal team had drafted contained her forged signature. Now she was operating on a combination of caffeine, adrenaline, and the grim satisfaction of having spotted the forgery in the first place. You have a finance degree and an eye for detail, she reminded herself. Use it. The courthouse doors opened and a man in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit stepped out. He was perhaps mid-30s, with the kind of face that belonged on magazine covers or FBI watch lists, sharp cheekbones, dark eyes that scanned the hallway like a chessboard, a scar just visible along his left jawline that suggested he'd been in situations where talking hadn't worked. He moved with the controlled precision of someone who'd learned violence as a second language and chose not to speak it unless necessary. Behind him came an older man with silver temples and a leather portfolio, and 2 others who had security written in every line of their posture. Olivia stood. Her heels clicked against the marble floor, and she was absurdly grateful she'd worn her most professional suit this morning, navy blue, conservative, armor disguised as clothing. Olivia Chen? The man in the charcoal suit stopped a few feet away. His voice was low, cultured, with just enough Brooklyn edge to remind you he hadn't always moved in these circles. I'm Adrian Vale. She'd seen photos, of course. When your sister is engaged to a man whose name appears in both society pages and sealed indictments, you do your research. But photos hadn't prepared her for the reality of his presence, the way the air seemed to compress around him, the alert stillness of his security team, and the absolute focus of his attention when he looked at her. Mr. Vale, she extended her hand because she'd been raised to be polite even when terrified. His grip was warm, brief, professional. Courthouses have excellent security and multiple exits. I'm a practical man. He glanced at the older man. Castellano, give us a moment. The security team melted into positions that somehow covered every approach while appearing casual. The older man, Castellano, settled onto a bench with his portfolio, already pulling out documents. Adrian Vale gestured to the bench Olivia had just vacated. Sit, please. I've been standing in a courtroom for 3 hours. My tolerance for formality is exhausted. Olivia sat, partly because her legs weren't entirely steady, and partly because refusing felt like a declaration of war she wasn't prepared to make. He sat beside her, close enough to speak quietly, far enough to maintain the illusion of space. Your father says you found the forgery. It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. Vanessa writes with her left hand. Her signature has distinctive pressure points on the upstrokes. The person who signed that contract was right-handed and in a hurry. And you noticed this because... Because I've been processing her expense reports for 5 years. She has excellent taste in restaurants and no concept of reasonable receipts. Also because the contract listed her as the bride in paragraph 3, but the signature page had been swapped out. Someone rebound the documents after the signature was added. The binding was fresh, but the paper stock didn't match the earlier pages. Adrian Vale was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, there was something almost like respect in his voice. Most people would have just seen their sister's name and stopped reading. I have a degree in finance and an eye for detail, she reminded herself. Use it. The corner of his mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but close. Your file didn't mention that. My file? She kept her voice level, though something cold moved through her chest. You have a file on me. I have files on everyone who might become relevant to my organization. Your file said you were the quiet daughter, the one who stayed in the background while Vanessa collected attention and your stepmother collected enemies. He turned to look at her directly, and Olivia felt the full weight of those dark eyes. It didn't mention that you read contracts like a forensic accountant, or that you had the nerve to show up alone to a meeting with me. My father is in there, she nodded towards the courtroom, giving testimony about the money laundering scheme he apparently didn't notice for 30 years. My stepmother is in federal custody, my sister is in witness protection because she saw something she shouldn't have and panicked. I'm the only one Chen left who can sign anything. She met his gaze steadily. Besides, you're the one who requested this meeting. If you wanted to hurt me, you'd have done it already. You want something else. Smart. He said it like he was testing the word, seeing if it fit. I do want something else. I want to know if you're competent as you appear, or if this is all performance. It's not performance, it's survival. There's a difference. Adrian Vale studied her for a long moment. The courthouse hallway hummed with distant activity, footsteps, murmured conversations, the occasional crackle of a security radio. Somewhere a door opened and closed. None of it touched the strange bubble of stillness around them. 3 months ago, he said finally, my organization entered into negotiations with your father's company. The Hartwell Capital portfolio is valuable, legitimate assets, clean money, political connections that would benefit both parties. The agreement included a marriage to formalize the alliance. Your sister was supposed to be the bride. I know, Olivia's voice was steady, though her hands wanted to shake. Vanessa told me about the engagement 2 days before she disappeared. She was terrified, not of you specifically, but of the whole situation, the pressure, the expectations, the idea of being locked into something she couldn't control. I told her to talk to our father. I didn't know she'd run. Would you have stopped her if you had? The question was too sharp, too perceptive. Olivia considered lying, then discarded the option. He'd know. She was beginning to understand that Adrian Vale noticed things. No, I would have helped her pack. Something flickered in his expression, approval maybe, or recognition. Honest. Good. That's more than I've gotten from your family so far. He leaned back slightly, his arm along the bench, creating an illusion of relaxation that didn't reach his eyes. 3 months ago, he said, my organization entered into negotiations with your father's company. The Hartwell Capital portfolio is valuable, legitimate assets, clean money, political connections that would benefit both parties. The agreement included a marriage to formalize the alliance. Your sister was supposed to be the bride. I know, Olivia's voice was steady, though her hands wanted to shake. Vanessa told me about the engagement 2 days before she disappeared. She was terrified, not of you specifically, but of the whole situation, the pressure, the expectations, the idea of being locked into something she couldn't control. I told her to talk to our father. I didn't know she'd run. Would you have stopped her if you had? The question was too sharp, too perceptive. Olivia considered lying, then discarded the option. He'd know. She was beginning to understand that Adrian Vale noticed things. No, I would have helped her pack. Something flickered in his expression, approval maybe, or recognition. Honest. Good. That's more than I've gotten from your family so far. He leaned back slightly, his arm along the bench, creating an illusion of relaxation that didn't reach his eyes.
3 months ago, he said, my organization entered into negotiations with your father's company. The Hartwell Capital portfolio is valuable, legitimate assets, clean money, political connections that would benefit both parties. The agreement included a marriage to formalize the alliance. Your sister was supposed to be the bride. I know, Olivia's voice was steady, though her hands wanted to shake. Vanessa told me about the engagement 2 days before she disappeared. She was terrified, not of you specifically, but of the whole situation, the pressure, the expectations, the idea of being locked into something she couldn't control. I told her to talk to our father. I didn't know she'd run. Would you have stopped her if you had? The question was too sharp, too perceptive. Olivia considered lying, then discarded the option. He'd know. She was beginning to understand that Adrian Vale noticed things. No, I would have helped her pack. Something flickered in his expression, approval maybe, or recognition.
I want you to consider it. Yes. And if I refuse? Adrian Vale's expression didn't change, but something shifted in the air between them. Then the merger collapses. Your father's company faces scrutiny it can't survive. The political connections we were going to provide vanish. Competitors move in. Within 18 months, Hartwell Capital is either bankrupt or acquired at pennies on the dollar. He delivered the forecast with the calm of someone reading stock prices. That's not a threat, it's a prediction. The merger was designed to stabilize both organizations. Without it, instability is inevitable. And me. What happens to me if I refuse? You walk out of this courthouse and go back to your life. Your finances are separate from your father's. Your apartment is in your aim. Your job history is solid. You'd survive. He tilted his head slightly. The question is whether you want to just survive. It was the most honest thing anyone had said to her in days. Olivia felt something loosen in her chest, the tight knot of fear and anger and exhaustion that had been building since Vanessa's panicked phone call. What would this look like, she asked, if I agreed? What would actually happen? The merger would be legal but private. A judge we trust, minimal witnesses, no press. You'd move into my residence, security reasons as well as appearances. You'd have full access to the merged organization's financial operations. Your father would retain day-to-day control of Hartwell Capital's legitimate business, but strategic decisions would go through both of us. He paused. You'd also have complete autonomy within agreed parameters, private spaces, personal security, financial independence. This is a partnership, not a prison sentence. A partnership. She couldn't keep the skepticism from her voice. That's what you're calling it? I'm calling it what I want it to be. His voice was level, unapologetic. I've seen what happens when people in my world treat marriages as transactions without investing in the relationship. It creates vulnerabilities, resentment that can be exploited, weakness. I'm not interested in acquiring a wife who hates me or a partner who undermines me from the inside. If you agree to this, I need you to actually be my partner, in practice, not just on paper. Olivia thought about her apartment in Astoria, the small balcony where she grew herbs that always died, the bookshelves packed with finance texts and mystery novels, the job she was good at but had never loved, the family that had never quite seen her, never quite valued her, never quite noticed that she was the one holding things together, while Vanessa collected attention and Margaret collected enemies. She thought about what it would feel like to be seen, to matter, to have power instead of just competence. What about Vanessa, she asked, if she comes back? She won't. Witness protection is designed to make people disappear. She'll have a new name, a new city, a new life. The sister you knew is gone. His voice was matter-of-fact, not cruel. If she somehow resurfaces, we'll address it then, but I wouldn't wait for her. It was the truth. Olivia recognized it the way she recognized forged signatures and altered documents, the unmistakable shape of reality beneath the performance. 24 hours, she said. I need 24 hours to review the actual terms, talk to my father without lawyers present, and make a decision without pressure. You'll have 12. The legal window for finalizing this closes tomorrow at 5. After that, the merger requires renegotiation, which creates opportunities for interference. He stood, and his security team materialized around him like they'd never been elsewhere.
Castellano will give you the documents. Read them carefully. If you have questions, call the number on the last page. It goes directly to me." He extended his hand and Olivia took it again. This time, his grip was firmer, more deliberate, a promise or a warning, she couldn't tell which. "Ms. Chen," he nodded once, then turned and walked toward the elevators, his people flowing around him like water around a stone. Olivia stood in the courthouse hallway holding a portfolio of documents that would determine the rest of her life, and watched Adrian Vale disappear behind steel doors. 12 hours. She had 12 hours to decide whether to become the wife of a man who had files on her, the partner of an organization she'd spent her life avoiding, the visible daughter after 28 years of perfect invisibility. Her phone buzzed, another message from her father. "Well?" She typed back, 12 hours, then I'll tell you. The response was immediate. "Be careful, Liv. These people are dangerous." Olivia looked at the elevator where Adrian Vale had vanished, then at the portfolio in her hands, then at her own reflection in the polished marble of the courthouse wall. "I know," she typed. "So am I." The Hartwell building occupied 12 floors of a downtown high-rise that screamed old money and new anxiety. Olivia had worked here for 5 years, and in all that time she'd never quite gotten used to the way the building seemed to watch you. Security cameras at every angle, keycard access for every door, receptionists who doubled as gatekeepers. Tonight, at 11 p.m., the building was mostly empty. Her heels echoed against the marble floor of the lobby as she signed in with the night security guard, a retired cop named Dennis who'd been working this shift since Olivia started. "Late night, Ms. Chen." He slid her visitor badge across the counter. "Your father's still upstairs. Been here since the hearing ended." "I know." Olivia clipped the badge to her jacket. "Coffee still terrible on 30? "Same as it's always been. I left the fresh pot about an hour ago, but, it's been an hour." "Thanks, Dennis. I'll take my chances." The elevator ride to 30 gave her 12 floors to think about what she was going to say. Her father, George Chen, had built Hartwell Capital from nothing, or rather from capital that arrived mysteriously 30 years ago when the company was on the verge of bankruptcy. Olivia had never questioned where that money came from. She'd been too young, then too busy surviving her stepmother's casual cruelty, then too focused on building her own quiet competence in the background. Now she knew. The capital had come from organized crime. The investors had been laundering money through legitimate businesses, and her mother, who died when she was 5, had discovered the truth and been murdered for it. The evidence had arrived 3 weeks ago, delivered anonymously to her father's residence with a note that said, "For your daughter. She'll know what to do." Olivia hadn't known what to do. She still didn't, but she'd spent the last 3 weeks learning, planning, preparing for a confrontation she'd never expected to have. The 30th floor was dark except for the light spilling from her father's corner office. Through the glass walls, she could see him sitting at his desk, head in his hands, the posture of a man who'd finally run out of options. She knocked on the open door. "Dad?" George Chen looked up, and Olivia's heart clenched at how old he seemed. 72 years old, silver-haired, usually immaculate in his custom suits. Tonight he looked every year of it, his tie loosened, his collar undone, dark circles under his eyes. "Liv," he straightened, tried to muster a smile, failed. "You got my messages." "I got all of them, the ones asking me to meet with Vale, the ones apologizing, the ones explaining about Mom." I walked into the office and sat across from him, the desk that had always seemed like a barrier now just furniture between two exhausted people. "I know," his voice cracked. "I know, and I have no excuse except cowardice and the hope that you'd never need to know. I thought if I just kept moving forward, kept the business clean, kept you separate from it all, the past would stay buried." It didn't. No, it didn't. He scrubbed his hands over his face. "The prosecutor today, she asked me directly, did I know about the money laundering? Did I know where the capital came from? Did I know that your mother was investigating when she died?" His voice broke on the last word. "I had to say yes, not to the murder, I didn't know that, Liv, I swear I didn't, but to everything else. I knew the money was dirty. I didn't want to know. I told myself it didn't matter as long as I kept the business clean going forward. I was wrong." Olivia absorbed this, filed it away with everything else she'd learned in the last 3 weeks. The prosecutor didn't charge you. Cooperation agreement. I testify against everyone I can identify, provide documentation of everything I have, and in exchange I get immunity for the past and probation for the present. He laughed bitterly. 30 years of building an empire, and I end up trading testimony for a chance to die outside prison walls. Mom would have wanted you to tell the truth. Your mother wanted a lot of things. George looked at her directly, and Olivia saw grief in his eyes. Real grief, 30 years old and still fresh. She wanted to expose the corruption. She wanted to clean up the business. She wanted to raise you in a world where you didn't have to be afraid. She didn't get any of it. She got me. Olivia's voice was steady, though something inside her was cracking. And I'm still here, still fighting, still trying to finish what she started. George stared at her. Liv, no, you can't. The people involved in this, the ones who killed her, they're still out there. Some of them are still powerful. If you start digging, someone already sent us the evidence. Someone's been feeding me information for weeks. They want this exposed. Dad, there's a network, corruption that runs through law enforcement, the courts, half the organized crime families on the East Coast. Mom found it and they killed her for it. But someone preserved the evidence. Someone's been waiting for the right moment to use it. Who? I don't know. They communicate through burner phones and anonymous messages, but they know things. They knew about the conspiracy with Margaret and Lucas. They knew where Webb kept his files. They know everything. George was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was hoarse. And you think marrying Adrian Vale will help you pursue this? I think Adrian Vale has resources, power, and a reason to want the old networks destroyed. His own organization is built on legitimacy now. He's been systematically dismantling the criminal elements his father used.
George Chen looked at his daughter, the quiet one, the invisible one, the child he'd failed to protect and failed to notice and failed to value. He saw her clearly for what felt like the first time. "You're going to be extraordinary," he said quietly. "I just wish I'd realized it sooner." "So do I," Olivia stood. "The documents Vale gave me, they're solid. Clean terms, fair protections, genuine partnership structure. I'm going to sign them tomorrow. And the marriage? Will be whatever we make it. Business arrangement with potential for more if we both choose that." She paused at the door. "Dad, I don't forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I understand you now, and that's something. Liv, get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day." She left him sitting in his office, alone with 30 years of regret, and walked back through the empty building to the street where a car was waiting. Not Adrian Vale's car, she wasn't that far gone yet, but a taxi she'd called, driven by a man who didn't know her name and didn't care where she was going. 12 hours, she thought, watching the city lights blur past. 12 hours until I become someone else. The apartment in Astoria was small, cluttered, perfect. Olivia had rented it 5 years ago, refusing her father's offers of something nicer in Manhattan because she'd needed space that was entirely hers. The balcony with its dead herbs, the bookshelves packed with reading, the kitchen where she'd learned to cook for one, all of it represented the life she'd built when no one was watching. Tonight, she walked through each room, touching things, saying goodbye without quite admitting that's what she was doing. The life she'd built here would still exist. She'd keep the apartment. The lease had another 8 months, but she wouldn't live in it anymore. Wouldn't wake up to the morning light through those windows. Wouldn't make coffee in that kitchen while planning another day of competent invisibility. You're not losing anything. You're gaining everything. It felt like a lie and a truth simultaneously. She packed a single bag, clothes, laptop, the watch her grandmother had given her, a photo of her mother from before the accident. Everything else could stay, could wait, could be dealt with later if there was a later. At 3 a.m., she sat on her balcony with cold tea and a dying herb plant, watching the city that never slept and wondering if she'd ever feel at home in it again. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number.
12 hours. You still have time to walk away. Olivia typed back, I'm not walking anywhere. The response came immediately, good, because we have work to do. She stared at the message for a long moment, then typed, who are you? Someone who wants the same thing you do, justice for your mother, exposure for the corruption that killed her, the destruction of networks that have operated with impunity for decades. Why me? Because you're the only one who can get close enough to finish it. Adrian Vale trusts you, or will. His organization is the key to dismantling the old guard, and you're smart enough to use that access without being consumed by it. Olivia's heart was pounding. You've been planning this for 15 years, waiting for the right moment, the right player, the right combination of circumstances. Margaret's conspiracy gave us the opening we needed. Now we have to move before the window closes. We? A pause. Then, I'll explain when it's safe. For now, trust that I'm on your side. Sign the papers tomorrow, marry Adrian Vale, build the partnership, and when the time is right, I'll give you the rest. The number went dark. Olivia sat on her balcony, holding her phone, watching the city lights and wondering if she'd just made a deal with an angel, or a devil, or something in between. At 9 a.m., she walked into the law offices of Morrison and Associates, wearing her best suit and carrying a signed copy of the marriage agreement. Adrian Vale was already there, standing by the windows with Castellano at his side, looking like he'd been up for hours and hadn't slept in days. You're early, he observed. I'm always early. It's a control thing. She set the documents on the conference table. Signed, initialed, notarized. Everything you asked for. Castellano stepped forward to review the pages, his expression professionally neutral. After a moment, he nodded. All in order. Adrian didn't look at the documents. He looked at Olivia. Any second thoughts? Dozens. I'm choosing to ignore them. Good answer. He gestured to the table. There's one more document, the prenuptial agreement we discussed, plus some additional provisions Castellano drafted overnight. Olivia sat and read carefully, her finance-trained eyes scanning each clause. The prenup was fair. She'd keep her personal assets, receive a substantial settlement if the marriage ended within 5 years, maintain ownership of anything she acquired independently. The additional provisions were more interesting. Shared authority over the merged organization's financial operations, access to all business records, a seat on the strategic planning committee. Full partnership, she said, looking up. You meant it. I told you I did. Adrian sat across from her, close enough to speak quietly, far enough to maintain professional distance. I've spent 15 years building something legitimate out of an organization built on crime. It's been slow, difficult, dangerous. Having a partner who understands finance, reads contracts like a forensic accountant, and isn't afraid to ask hard questions, that's valuable. I'm not going to waste it by treating you like a decorative accessory. Olivia signed the additional provisions. When's the wedding? 2 hours. Judge Morrison owes me several favors. Castellano has arranged for witnesses. Adding what? Adrian stood. You'll want to eat something first. The ceremony is brief, but the reception afterwards. There's a reception? Family meeting. The organization needs to see you, understand that you're under my protection, and recognize your authority. It's ceremonial, but necessary. He paused. Fair warning, some of them won't like you. Most won't trust you. A few will test you. I've survived the Chen family for 28 years. I think I can handle a mafia reception. Adrian's smile was brief and sharp. I believe you. The wedding took place in Judge Morrison's chambers, which smelled like old books and expensive whiskey, and looked exactly like the kind of place where deals were made that no one would ever discuss publicly. Mr. Vale, he shook Adrian's hand, you're getting married faster than usual. Business complications? Something like that. Adrian's voice was smooth. I appreciate your flexibility. Morrison turned to Olivia. And you must be the bride. You look remarkably calm for someone about to marry into the Vale organization. I'm told I have an excellent poker face." The judge laughed. "You'll need it. Shall we begin?" The ceremony was perfunctory, legal requirements recited in a voice that suggested Morrison had done this thousands of times and expected to do it thousands more. Olivia's responses were steady.
Adrian's were measured. The witnesses, Castellano and a woman Olivia didn't recognize, observed with professional neutrality. "You may kiss the bride." Adrian leaned in, his hand warm against her cheek, and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was brief, appropriate for a business arrangement, but something in the way his fingers lingered sent a shock of awareness down her spine. They separated. Morrison handed them a marriage certificate. "Congratulations. May your union be profitable and your enemies unsuccessful. Castellano will file the paperwork. Now get out. I have a poker game in 20 minutes. In the car heading to the reception, Olivia stared at the certificate in her hands. Adrian Michael Vale and Olivia May Chen joined in matrimony. The words looked official and completely surreal. "Having second thoughts?" Adrian asked from beside her. "Third and fourth, but I'm here. Might as well see it through." That's the spirit that built empires, grim determination and spite. The reception was held at a private club in Brooklyn that looked like a 19th century bank on the outside and a 21st century power center on the inside. Crystal chandeliers, mahogany panels, discreet security at every entrance, a bar that stretched the length of one wall. The people filling the space represented every level of the city's power structure: politicians, developers, lawyers, business owners, and underneath it all the quiet current of violence that marked Adrian's true empire. Everyone turned when they entered. Adrian's hand settled on the small of Olivia's back, possessive, protective, a clear signal to the room. "Ladies, gentlemen, my wife, Olivia Vale." The applause was measured, calculating, exactly what she'd expected. For the next 3 hours, she smiled and nodded and shook hands with people whose names appeared in both police reports and society pages. She met Adrian's inner circle: Marcus Chen, no relation, who ran security and looked like he could bench press a car; David Torres, who handled legal operations and had Harvard credentials and ice in his veins; and half a dozen others whose exact roles were left tactfully vague. She met the older generation, men who'd built the organization before Adrian inherited it, who watched her with the suspicious eyes of people who'd seen too many power plays. She met the younger generation, hungry, ambitious men and women who saw her as either an opportunity or a threat. And she met Lucas Vale. He arrived late when the reception was winding down and Olivia's face hurt from smiling. He was younger than Adrian by a few years, with the same dark hair but lighter eyes and a charm Adrian didn't bother with. Handsome in an obvious way, dressed too well, moving through the room like he owned it. The mysterious bride. Lucas took her hand and kissed it in a gesture that was either old-fashioned courtesy or subtle mockery. "My brother works fast. I only heard about the engagement this afternoon." It was a whirlwind, a love-at-first-sight contract negotiation. Lucas laughed. "I like her, Adrian. She's got spine." He turned to his brother. "Though I'm hurt you didn't include me in the wedding party. I am family." "You were busy." Adrian's voice was flat. This was time-sensitive. Something passed between the brothers, a look Olivia couldn't quite read. Tension, maybe, or old rivalry wearing a polite mask. "Well, congratulations, anyway." Lucas raised his glass. "To the happy couple. May your union be everything you both deserve." He drifted away, and Olivia watched him go. There was something about Lucas that made her instincts prickle. A performance quality, like he was playing a role that didn't quite fit.
"Your brother seems charming," she said quietly. "My half-brother, and charm is his specialty, among other things. Should I be worried about other things?" Adrian's expression was unreadable. "You should be worried about everyone until we figure out who's really behind the conspiracy. Trust no one, question everything, including me." "I already don't trust you." "Good, that means you might survive this." The apartment occupied the entire top floor of a converted warehouse in Dumbo, exposed brick, floor-to-ceiling windows, original art on the walls, and the kind of security system that required biometric scans just to use the elevator. Olivia stood in the foyer after the reception, her single bag at her feet, and tried to process the fact that this was now her home. "Your room is down the hall," Adrian gestured toward a corridor. "Full bathroom, walk-in closet, private sitting area. The door locks from the inside. No one enters without your permission. Not staff, not security, not me." "Why?" Olivia turned to face him. "Why give me privacy? Why negotiate my conditions? Why treat this like anything other than a transaction? You could have simply demanded compliance. You have all the power." Adrian leaned against the doorframe, his expression thoughtful. "Because forced compliance creates resentment. Resentment creates betrayal. I need a partner in this, not a prisoner. The terms had to work for both of us, or the whole arrangement becomes unstable." "That's very rational."
I'm a rational person. His smile was thin, despite what my reputation suggests. Get some rest, Olivia. Tomorrow we start the real work, integrating the organizations, reviewing the evidence your anonymous source provided, figuring out who killed your mother. He started to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry this happened to you. The forged contract, the forced marriage, all of it. You didn't deserve to be used this way." Olivia felt something crack in her chest, the first genuine emotion she'd allowed herself all day. "Thank you. That's the first real apology I've received." Adrian nodded and disappeared down the hall. Olivia locked her door, changed into pajamas, and sat on the edge of the massive bed. Through the windows, the city glittered like stars scattered across dark water. Somewhere out there, someone had sent her evidence of her mother's murder. Someone had been watching, waiting, planning for 15 years. Someone wanted the corruption exposed as much as she did. And she was married to a man who might be the key to making it happen. "You're not invisible anymore," she told herself. "You're not expendable. You're not collateral. You're the one who's going to finish this." She fell asleep with the city lights painting patterns on the ceiling and the weight of 30 years of secrets pressing down like a physical force. 3 weeks later, Olivia sat in what had become her office, a space Adrian had cleared for her next to his own, with the same floor-to-ceiling windows and enough technology to run a small country, and stared at the evidence spread across her multiple monitors. Her anonymous source had been busy. Every few days, new files appeared in a secure folder, accessible only through an encrypted connection that even Adrian's security team couldn't trace. Financial records, corporate documents, recorded phone calls, photographs of meetings that should never have happened. The picture they painted was devastating. A network of corruption spanning 30 decades, connecting organized crime families, politicians, law enforcement officials, and legitimate businesses in a web of money laundering, bribery, and murder. Her mother had discovered it, documented it, prepared to expose it, and died for her trouble. But someone had preserved the evidence. Someone had been waiting for the right moment to use it, and now that moment had arrived. "Anything new?" Adrian appeared in her doorway, coffee in hand, looking like he'd been up for hours. "More financial records, this time from a shell company in the Caymans that connects to at least 3 of the names on our list." She swiveled her monitor so he could see. "Look at the transfer patterns. Small amounts, frequent transactions, always just below reporting thresholds.
Classic money laundering structure. Adrian studied the screen, his expression grim. How much total? Over the past 5 years, at least 50 million, probably more. I'm still tracing some of the accounts. She pulled up another document, and here's the interesting part. The beneficiaries include at least 2 current federal prosecutors, a state judge, and 3 people currently serving on the Organized Crime Task Force. The task force that's supposed to be investigating this network. The same. Olivia leaned back in her chair. Whoever built this system was thorough. They've got people in every position that matters. Prosecutors who can kill investigations, judges who can suppress evidence, law enforcement who can tip them off when someone gets too close. Adrian was quiet for a moment, processing. Your mother found all of this 30 years ago, with fewer resources, less technology, more risk, and she was going to expose it anyway. She was braver than I am. No, she was desperate. You're strategic. There's a difference. Olivia looked at him, this man who'd started as a threat and become something far more complicated. In 3 weeks, they'd developed a rhythm that surprised her, working side by side for 12 hours a day, reviewing evidence, planning strategy, building the framework for an investigation that could bring down half the power structure on the East Coast. They didn't always agree. She was methodical where he was decisive, cautious where he was bold, but they'd learned to complement each other, to push and pull until they found the right approach. Castellano wants to bring in the FBI, use the evidence to get federal jurisdiction, leverage the clean agents to go after the corrupted ones. Too risky. We don't know who's compromised. Adrian shook his head. The moment we bring in anyone from outside, we lose control of the timeline. Evidence gets lost, witnesses get relocated, cases get assigned to prosecutors who know how to make them disappear. Then what do you suggest? We build our own case, document everything, identify every player, map the entire network, and when we have it all, every name, every connection, every crime, we go public simultaneously. Media, federal prosecutors we've vetted, maybe even congressional oversight. Make it too big to bury. Olivia considered this. That's ambitious. It's also incredibly dangerous. The moment someone realizes what we're doing, they'll try to stop us, violently if necessary. Which is why we need to be careful. No leaks, no trust beyond this room, no assumptions about who's on our side. And your organization? Your people? Vetted, loyal, but even they don't know the full scope. He met her eyes. The only people who know everything are you, me, and Castellano. Marcus knows enough to protect us, but not enough to compromise us. Everyone else operates on a need-to-know basis. Olivia nodded slowly. And my anonymous source? Still unknown, still valuable, still a potential threat. Adrian's expression was unreadable. Whoever they are, they've been feeding us information for weeks. That means they have access to things they shouldn't. That means they're either incredibly helpful or incredibly dangerous, possibly both. You think they're playing us? I think everyone's playing everyone until proven otherwise, including me. He stood. Get some rest. We've got a long night ahead. Marcus found something in the old financial records that might connect to your mother's investigation. We're reviewing it at 8. He left, and Olivia turned back to her screens, the evidence of corruption, the map of conspiracy, the weight of 30 years of secrets spread before her like a puzzle waiting to be solved. Her phone buzzed. Anonymous message. You're making progress. Faster than I expected. She typed back. Who are you? Soon, when it's safe. For now, keep pushing. The network is bigger than you know, and more fragile. More fragile how?
A pause. Then, they've been operating with impunity for so long they've gotten careless, believed their own propaganda, assumed no one would ever challenge them. You're the challenge they never saw coming. Why me? Because you're smart enough to see the patterns, brave enough to pursue them, and now you have resources. Adrian Vale's organization, his protection, his power. You're exactly what your mother would have wanted you to be. Olivia stared at the message. You knew my mother. Another pause, longer this time. Then, I knew of her, respected her, grieved when she died. She deserved better than what she got. And now she's getting justice, through you. Keep going, Olivia. You're almost there. The number went dark. Olivia set her phone down, heart pounding, mind racing through possibilities. Whoever her anonymous source was, they had personal investment in this, personal knowledge, personal grief. Someone who'd been there, someone who'd been watching, someone who'd been waiting. 15 years, they'd said, waiting for the right moment. What kind of person waits 15 years for revenge? The kind who'd been burned before, the kind who'd learned patience the hard way, the kind who understood that some battles couldn't be won quickly, they had to be won completely. Olivia looked at the evidence on her screens, the map of corruption spreading across 3 decades, the names of people who'd killed her mother and gotten away with it. I'm coming for you, she thought, all of you. And this time, there's nowhere to hide. The breakthrough came 4 days later, in the form of a single document buried in thousands of pages of financial records. Olivia found it at 2 a.m., bleary-eyed and running on caffeine, when a pattern she'd been tracking suddenly resolved into clarity. A series of wire transfers, each just under the reporting threshold, moving from a shell company in the Caymans to a law firm in Manhattan. The firm's managing partner was Harrison Webb, the same Harrison Webb who'd been the Chen family's corporate attorney for 15 years, the same Harrison Webb who'd prepared the original merger contract with the Vales, the same Harrison Webb whose signature appeared on documents connecting to half the names in her investigation. She stared at the screen, her heart pounding. Webb had been her family's trusted advisor for years. He'd attended family dinners. He'd handled her mother's estate. He'd witnessed her graduation, her first job offer, her quiet progression through the company ranks. And he'd been part of the network that killed her mother. Adrian, she was already moving towards his office, her voice echoing in the empty hallway. What? Harrison Webb. He's been moving money for the network. Look. She showed him the transfers, the patterns, the connections. 15 years of payments, always just under the radar, always routed through layers of shell companies. He's not just complicit, he's central. He's the legal infrastructure for the whole operation. Adrian studied the evidence, his expression darkening. If Webb's involved, then everything your family's done for the past 15 years, every contract, every merger, every legal filing, could be compromised. Worse, Olivia pulled up more documents. He handled my mother's estate. He was the one who certified the accident investigation as complete. He signed off on the death certificate. Her voice was steady, but something cold was moving through her chest. He helped cover up her murder. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone. Castellano, get to the apartment now. We've got a problem. 20 minutes later, they were gathered in Olivia's office. Adrian, Marcus, Castellano, and Olivia herself, reviewing the evidence she'd uncovered. Castellano's expression shifted from professional neutrality to something darker as he read. Webb's been playing both sides for years, he said finally, feeding information to competitors, setting up shell companies to acquire assets at below-market prices, positioning himself to profit from any instability. He pulled up additional files. I've been tracking similar patterns in Vale organization records. Webb has connections to at least 3 of our rivals, including some we thought were neutralized years ago. He's the through line. Olivia spread documents across the table. Look, every major player in the network connects to Webb somehow. Legal representation, money movement, information flow. He's the hub. Marcus leaned forward. If we take down Webb, we take down the network? Not exactly. Adrian shook his head. Webb's the infrastructure, but he's not the leadership. Someone's been directing this operation for 30 years. Someone with enough power to coordinate across families, jurisdictions, and decades. Webb works for them. Who? Olivia asked. We don't know yet. Adrian met her eyes. But we're gonna find out, and when we do. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned, then put it on speaker. Go. Mr. Vale. The voice was unfamiliar, tinny through the phone speaker. I have information you need. About Webb, about the network, about who's really running things. Adrian's expression didn't change, but Olivia saw his hand tighten on the phone. Who is this? Someone who's been waiting a long time to talk to you. Meet me at the old Domino Sugar Refinery in Williamsburg. 1 hour. Come alone. A pause. Bring your wife. She deserves to hear this too. The line went dead. The room was silent for a moment. Then Castellano spoke. It's a trap. Probably, Adrian stood. But whoever that was knew about Olivia, knew about Webb, knew about the network. That's not random. That's someone with access.
You're not going alone. Marcus was already pulling out his phone, calling for backup. I'll have a team in position within 30 minutes. Keep them back, way back. Adrian looked at Olivia. You don't have to come. This could be dangerous. I'm coming. She was already grabbing her jacket. Whoever this is, they asked for me specifically. That means they know something about my mother. I need to hear it. Adrian studied her for a moment, then nodded. Stay close. Follow my lead. If anything feels wrong, we're gone. The Domino Sugar Refinery had been abandoned for decades, its massive brick buildings looming over the Williamsburg waterfront like monuments to a different era. Olivia had driven past it 100 times, always struck by the contrast between its industrial past and the gleaming condos springing up around it. Tonight, it looked exactly like the kind of place where people went to have conversations that couldn't happen anywhere else. Adrian parked several blocks away, and they approached on foot, moving through shadows with the kind of practiced silence that spoke to his experience and her determination. The meeting point was a loading dock at the rear of the main building, partially hidden by rusted equipment and overgrown weeds. A figure waited in the darkness, tall, lean, wearing a long coat that obscured their shape. As they drew closer, Olivia saw it was a man, maybe 60, with silver hair and the weathered face of someone who'd spent decades outdoors or in situations that aged people prematurely. Mr. Vale, Mrs. Vale, his voice was the same one from the phone. Thank you for coming. Adrian stopped a careful distance away, positioning himself between Olivia and the stranger. You have information for us. I have the whole story. The man reached into his coat, and Olivia tensed, but he only pulled out a folder thick with papers. 30 years of documentation, names, dates, transactions, orders, everything you need to bring down the network that killed Olivia's mother. Olivia's heart stopped. You knew my mother.
I worked with her. The man's voice cracked slightly. I was her source inside the organization, the one who gave her the documents she was gathering when she died. Adrian's hand was on his weapon, but his voice was controlled. You're the one who's been sending the anonymous files, every one of them. For 15 years, I've been waiting for the right moment, the right player, the right combination of circumstances. The man looked at Olivia, and in the dim light, she saw tears in his eyes. Your mother was the bravest person I ever knew. She was going to expose everything, risk everything, because she believed the truth mattered more than her safety. And when they killed her, when I couldn't save her, I swore I'd finish what she started. Who are you? Olivia's voice was barely a whisper. My name is Thomas Chen. I'm your mother's brother, your uncle. The world tilted. Olivia grabbed Adrian's arm to steady herself. That's not possible. My mother didn't have any siblings. My father said, your father didn't know. Thomas stepped closer, and Adrian let him, recognizing that whatever threat he posed wasn't immediate. Your mother and I grew up in the system. Foster homes, group homes, never staying in one place long enough to put down roots. When she met your father, she was trying to build a new life, leave the past behind. She didn't tell him about me because I was still connected to the world she was trying to escape. The criminal world? Yes. I was young, stupid, easily recruited. By the time I realized what I'd gotten into, I was in too deep to get out. But when your mother started investigating, when she came to me for information, I gave her everything. Every document, every name, every connection. I thought if she could expose the network, we could both be free. His voice broke. Instead, they killed her, and I've been running ever since. Olivia stared at the man who was supposedly her uncle, the family connection she'd never known, the source of all the evidence, the one person who'd been fighting alongside her mother from the beginning. Why now? She asked. Why wait 15 years? Because I wasn't ready. Because the network was too strong. Because every time I tried to move against them, someone died. Thomas's expression was grim. 3 informants, 2 journalists, a federal prosecutor who started asking the right questions. All of them dead within weeks of making progress. I learned that patience wasn't cowardice, it was strategy. I needed to wait until there was someone powerful enough to protect the investigation. Someone with resources and motivation and nothing to lose. He looked at Adrian. Your organization is clean, cleaner than most. You've been systematically dismantling the criminal elements your father built, and you have the resources to take on the network without being destroyed in the process. Then he looked at Olivia. And you, her daughter. Smart enough to see the patterns, brave enough to pursue them, positioned perfectly to access everything we need. You're exactly what your mother would have wanted you to be. Olivia felt tears on her cheeks, though she didn't remember crying. All this time, you've been watching, waiting, protecting. When Margaret started her conspiracy with Lucas and Webb, I saw my opening. If I could help you expose them, you'd gain credibility, power, access to Vale's organization, and then you'd be positioned to take on the real enemy. Thomas held out the folder. This is everything. Every name, every connection, every piece of evidence that survived 30 years. Use it wisely. Use it carefully. And when it's over, if we both survive, maybe we can finally be family. Olivia took the folder. It was heavy, thick with paper. The
the weight of 3 decades of secrets. "How do we know this isn't a trap?" Adrian asked. His voice was calm, but Olivia could feel the tension in his body. "You don't." Thomas met his gaze steadily. "You verify. You investigate. You use the information I've given you to build your own case. And if I'm lying, if any of this is false, you come after me with everything you have." He paused. "But I'm not lying. I've been waiting 15 years to tell this story, to finally do right by my sister. Don't make me wait any longer." Adrian studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "We'll be in touch." They walked back to the car in silence, the folder clutched against Olivia's chest like a lifeline. When they were safely inside, doors locked, engine running, she finally let herself breathe. "I have an uncle," she said. "Apparently." Adrian pulled away from the curb, his eyes scanning the darkness for threats. "Do you believe him?" "I believe he has information. I believe he's connected to your mother's investigation. I believe he's been feeding us evidence for weeks." Adrian glanced at her. "Whether he's telling the whole truth, whether his motives are pure, that remains to be seen. He's family. He's a stranger who shares your DNA. That's not the same thing." Adrian's voice was gentle but firm. "Be careful, Olivia. Hope is dangerous. Trust is dangerous. Verify everything before you let yourself believe." Olivia looked down at the folder in her hands. The evidence of her mother's murder. The proof of 30 years of corruption. The name of every person who'd been part of the network that killed her. "I will," she said. "But for the first time in weeks, I feel like we might actually win." Adrian reached over and squeezed her hand. A brief touch, warm and surprising. "We will, together." The next 3 months were a blur of investigation, verification, and careful planning. Olivia worked 16-hour days, cross-referencing Thomas's documents with every other source they could find. Adrian mobilized his entire organization, assigning teams to track down leads, verify identities, build the case piece by piece. Castellano proved invaluable, his legal expertise helping them structure the evidence in ways that would hold up to scrutiny. Marcus handled security, ensuring that no one got too close to their operation, that every meeting was protected, that every witness remained safe. And Thomas, her uncle, her mother's brother, the stranger who shared her blood, became a regular presence in their lives. He'd been living under assumed names for 15 years, moving from city to city, always watching, always waiting. Now, finally, he could stop running. "It's strange," Olivia said one night, sitting on the balcony with Adrian after another 16-hour day. "Having family I didn't know about, learning about my mother from someone who actually knew her." "What have you learned?" Olivia considered the question. "That she was brave, recklessly brave. That she believed in justice more than she believed in safety. That she loved me fiercely, even though I was too young to remember." She paused. "That she'd be proud of what I'm doing." "She would." Adrian's voice was quiet. "You're finishing what she started. That's not nothing." "I know." Olivia looked out at the city lights. "But sometimes I wonder, if she hadn't died, what would my life have been like? Would I still be invisible? Would I still be collateral?"
Or would you have been visible from the beginning? Valued from the start? Adrian shook his head. "There's no way to know. All you can control is what happens now." "And what happens now is we take down a network that's been operating for 30 years. Olivia turned to face him. "We expose everyone. Every politician, every lawyer, every crime figure who was part of it. We make sure my mother's murder is finally acknowledged." "And after?" The question hung in the air between them. After the investigation, after the trials, after the network was destroyed and justice was served. What then? "I don't know," Olivia admitted. "I haven't thought that far ahead." "Maybe you should start." Adrian's expression was unreadable. "Because when this is over, you'll have choices. What you want to do, who you want to be, whether you want to stay married to me." Olivia studied him. This man who'd started as a threat and become something far more complicated. Partner, ally, friend. Possibly more if she let herself think about it. "Do you want me to stay?" she asked. Adrian was quiet for a moment. Then, "Yes, but only if it's what you actually want. Not obligation, not necessity. Not because we built this together and you don't know what else to do." He met her eyes. "I meant what I said at the beginning. This is a partnership, not a prison. When the investigation is over, you're free to choose." "And if I choose to stay?" "Then we figure out what that looks like, what we want this to be, what's possible when we're not just fighting a war together." Olivia felt something warm spread through her chest. That's remarkably romantic for a crime lord. Adrian's smile was brief and genuine. "I have my moments." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city, thinking about futures and possibilities, and the strange partnership they'd built from the ashes of conspiracy. 3 weeks later, everything changed. The raid happened at dawn. Olivia woke to the sound of breaking glass and shouting, her bedroom door slamming open to reveal Marcus with a gun in his hand and blood on his face. "We're compromised. Move, now." She was moving before she could think, grabbing nothing but her phone and the flash drive she kept under her pillow, the one with all the evidence, all the names, all the proof of 30 years of corruption. Marcus grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the service elevator, his body positioned between her and whatever was happening in the apartment. Gunfire, shouting, the crash of furniture being overturned. Through the chaos, she heard Adrian's voice, calm and controlled, giving orders that his people were following even as they fought for their lives. The service elevator opened. Marcus pushed her inside, hit the button for the garage, and stood in the doorway with his gun raised, covering their escape. "Marcus." "Go, I'll find you." The doors closed. Olivia descended alone, heart pounding, flash drive clutched against her chest, phone already buzzing with messages she couldn't read. The garage was chaos too, more gunfire, more shouting, the squeal of tires and the smell of smoke. She ran for the car she'd learned to drive in this new life, an armored SUV with enough security features to survive almost anything. She was halfway there when a hand grabbed her arm. Olivia spun, ready to fight, and found herself staring at Thomas, her uncle, her mother's brother, the man who'd been waiting 15 years for justice. "This way." He pulled her toward a different vehicle, a nondescript sedan that would blend into any background. "They're expecting you to run for the SUV. We need to be unpredictable." "How did you—" "No time. Get in." She got in. They were moving before the door closed, Thomas driving with the controlled precision of someone who'd spent decades learning to escape. Behind them, the building receded into the distance, still echoing with violence. "My phone," Olivia pulled it out. "I need to reach Adrian." "Already tried. He's alive, wounded but alive. Marcus got him out through the loading dock." Thomas glanced at her. "They knew. Someone inside your organization fed them information. They knew about the investigation, the evidence, the raid. They came for all of it." Olivia's blood ran cold. "Who?" "That's what we need to figure out." Thomas handed her a burner phone. "Use this. Your phone is compromised. Everything you've been using is compromised. We start over from scratch." They drove for hours, switching vehicles twice, finally ending up at a safe house in New Jersey that Thomas had prepared years ago for exactly this scenario. It was small, sparse, utterly anonymous, exactly what they needed. Adrian arrived 3 hours later, Marcus supporting him, a bandage wrapped around his ribs where a bullet had grazed him. He looked at Olivia with an expression that mixed relief and fury. "They took Castellano." The words hit like a physical blow. Castellano, their legal expert, their strategist, the man who'd helped them build the case from the beginning. "He's the one who was the leak," Adrian continued, his voice flat. "He's been working for the network the whole time, feeding them information, coordinating their response, positioning himself to take control when we fell." Olivia's jaw tightened. "He's the one who set up the raid. He's the one who told them where to hit. He's been playing us from the beginning." Thomas spoke quietly. "I suspected. That's why I never revealed myself until I was sure of you. Castellano's father was part of the original network. I thought maybe the son had inherited more than just the position." He did. Adrian sank onto a chair, exhaustion and pain visible in every line of his body. He inherited everything. The connections, the corruption, the willingness to kill anyone who got in his way. Olivia's mind was racing. If Castellano's the leak, then everything we've built, the evidence, the case, the plan. Compromised. He knows all of it. Marcus's voice was grim. "We need to assume he's already shared everything with the network. Every name, every document, every strategy. Then we need to move faster." Olivia pulled out the flash drive, the one she'd grabbed from under her pillow, the one with all the evidence. She'd been keeping a separate copy, updating it manually, not connected to any network he could access. Adrian looked at her with something like wonder. "You anticipated this." "I anticipated something. I didn't know what." She held up the drive. "But yes, I've been preparing for betrayal since the beginning. It seemed prudent." Thomas laughed, a genuine sound, warm and surprising. "You're definitely your mother's daughter." Adrian stood, wincing slightly, and crossed to Olivia. He took her face in his hands, gently, carefully, like she was something precious, and kissed her. It wasn't the brief, professional kiss from their wedding. It was real, warm, full of promise and fear and the desperate hope that they might actually survive this. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright. "We're going to win this, together." Olivia nodded, her heart pounding. "Together." The next 72 hours were chaos organized with military precision. From the safe house in New Jersey, Olivia and Adrian rebuilt their case from scratch. Thomas provided additional evidence he'd kept hidden for years. Marcus coordinated with the loyal remnants of Adrian's organization, the ones Castellano hadn't corrupted, and slowly, carefully, they constructed a new plan. The key was timing. They needed to move before Castellano and the network could consolidate their victory, but after they'd gathered enough evidence to make the case unstoppable. It was a razor's edge, and one mistake would mean everything. On the third night, Olivia's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. They're meeting tomorrow, all of them, the old warehouse in Red Hook, midnight. If you want them all at once, that's your chance. She showed Adrian. Can we trust it? No, but we can verify. He pulled up satellite images of the Red Hook warehouse. If they're meeting, there'll be security, vehicles, patterns we can observe. Marcus spent the next 12 hours watching, documenting, confirming. By noon the next day, they had proof. At least a dozen key figures from the network, including Castellano, gathering at the warehouse that night. It's a trap, Marcus said. Has to be. Probably. Adrian's expression was calculating. But it's also an opportunity. If we can get evidence of that meeting, recordings, photographs, witness testimony, we can take them all down at once. How? Olivia asked. Adrian looked at her. You're not going to like it. I haven't liked anything about the last 3 months. Tell me anyway. I go in alone, wear a wire, record everything. Marcus and a team provide backup, but stay far enough back that they're not detected. He held up a hand as Olivia started to protest. It's the only way. If they see a large force, they'll scatter. If they see me alone, they'll think I'm desperate, defeated, coming to negotiate. They'll talk. They always talk. You could be killed. Yes, his voice was calm. But I won't be, because you'll be watching, and Marcus will be watching, and if anything goes wrong, you'll come for me. He met her eyes. I trust you, Olivia, more than I've trusted anyone. If this is how it ends, it's not how it ends. Her voice was fierce. You don't get to die on me. Not now, not ever. Adrian smiled, genuine, warm, full of everything they'd built together. Then I won't. The warehouse in Red Hook was exactly the kind of place where networks met to discuss things that couldn't be discussed anywhere else. Abandoned, isolated, surrounded by water on 3 sides. Easy to defend, impossible to approach without being seen. Adrian approached alone, as planned, his hands visible, his pace unhurried. Olivia watched through binoculars from a rooftop half a mile away, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. 1 minute out, Marcus's voice murmured through her earpiece. He's almost at the entrance. Copy. Olivia adjusted her focus, trying to see through the darkness. Any movement from backup positions? Negative. They're holding. Adrian reached the warehouse door. It opened from inside, spilling light and the silhouettes of waiting men. He stepped through, and the door closed behind him. The waiting began. Olivia had never hated anything as much as she hated those next 45 minutes. Every second stretched into eternity. Every imagined sound a potential shotgun. Every flicker of movement a possible attack. She forced herself to breathe, to stay focused, to trust the plan she'd helped create. Then Marcus's voice. Movement. Doors opening. Adrian emerged, walking the same unhurried pace, his expression unreadable. Behind him, the warehouse lights went dark. The meeting was over. Is he... Olivia couldn't finish the question. He's alive, moving towards extraction point. A pause. He's got the recordings. We've got them all. Olivia closed her eyes and let herself breathe. The recordings were devastating. Adrian had walked into that warehouse playing the role of a defeated man, his organization shattered, his allies dead or scattered, his only hope a deal with the network that had been pursuing him. And they'd believed him. They'd talked, boasted, revealed everything. 30 years of conspiracy, laid out in crystal clear audio. Names, dates, crimes. The murder of Olivia's mother, described in chilling detail by the man who'd ordered it, a crime boss named Vincent Marchetti who'd been operating with impunity for decades. The corruption of federal prosecutors, judges, law enforcement officials. The money laundering, the bribery, the systematic destruction of anyone who threatened their power. And at the center of it all, Castellano, smiling, confident, explaining how he'd played both sides for years, positioning himself to take control when the dust settled. You were useful, he told Adrian on the recording. Your organization was a perfect front, legitimate enough to attract the right attention, criminal enough to provide cover. And your wife? Her mother's investigation was the best thing that ever happened to us. It let us identify everyone who might threaten the network, eliminate them before they could act. Adrian's voice, calm and controlled. You killed her. I ordered it, yes. Castellano Sr. handled the details. But the principle was sound. Remove threats before they become problems. Your wife's mother was a threat. Now she's a warning. A pause. And soon your wife will be a widow, unless she's smart enough to disappear. The recording ended. Olivia sat in silence, the words echoing in her mind. Your wife's mother was a threat. Now she's a warning. I'm going to kill him. Her voice was flat, empty of emotion. Adrian didn't argue. He just sat beside her, took her hand, and waited. After a long moment, she spoke again. But not today. Today we use this evidence. We bring them all down, every single one.
And after? Olivia looked at him. We figure out what justice really means. For my mother, for us, for whatever we're building together. Adrian squeezed her hand. Together. The takedown was coordinated across 3 states, involving federal prosecutors who'd been vetted by Thomas over years of careful observation, journalists who'd been waiting for a story this big, and law enforcement agents who'd never been part of the corruption. Olivia watched it on television, sitting in the safe house with Adrian beside her and Thomas across the room. Image after image flashed across the screen. Vincent Marchetti, led away in handcuffs. Harrison Webb, his lawyer's composure finally shattered. A dozen others, faces she'd come to know through months of investigation. And Castellano. He looked smaller on screen, diminished by the bright lights of the cameras and the weight of what he'd done. But when they showed his face, when the charges were read, conspiracy, money laundering, obstruction of justice, murder, Olivia felt nothing but cold satisfaction. You did it, Thomas said quietly. You finished what she started. We did it, Olivia looked at him. All of us, you, me, Adrian, Marcus, everyone who refused to look away. Thomas nodded slowly. She'd be proud of all of us. Later that night, after the coverage had died down and the safe house had settled into something like peace, Olivia and Adrian sat on the small balcony, watching the distant lights of the city. It's over, she said. Finally over. It's beginning, Adrian's voice was thoughtful. The trials will take years. More evidence will surface. More people will be implicated. But yes, the worst is over. Olivia turned to look at him. What happens now, for us? Adrian met her eyes. Whatever we want. The marriage is real now, not just legal, but real. We've built something together. Trust. Partnership. More if you want it. He paused. I want it. I want you. Not because of the investigation or the conspiracy or any of it. Because of who you are. Who we are together. Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. Not sadness, but something deeper. Recognition. Homecoming. I want that too, she said. I want us. They kissed, slow and warm, full of promise, and when they pulled apart, the city light seemed brighter somehow, full of possibility. 1 year later, Olivia stood in the courtroom where Vincent Marchetti was being sentencing, watching as the judge read the verdict that would send him to prison for the rest of his life without parole. Justice, finally, for her mother. Beside her, Adrian's hand found hers and held on. Behind them, Thomas sat with the quiet satisfaction of someone who'd waited 15 years for this moment. And across the aisle, Castellano watched from his own seat, awaiting his own sentencing, his expression unreadable. The judge's gavel fell. The bailiffs led Marchetti away, and Olivia let herself breathe. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed with cameras and questions. She gave a brief statement, gratitude to the prosecutors, hope for continued justice, acknowledgement of her mother's bravery. And then Adrian's security team created a path to the waiting car. In the quiet of the vehicle, she finally let herself feel it. The weight of 30 years lifted. The justice her mother had died seeking. The future stretching before her, full of possibility. Okay, Olivia asked. Okay, she squeezed his hand. More than okay. They drove to their apartment, both their names on the deed, both their lives intertwined in every way that mattered. Thomas was already there, waiting with dinner and the comfortable silence of family. Your mother would have loved this, he said, raising his glass. Justice, family, peace. I raised my own glass. To Mom, for finishing what she started, and to all of us, for refusing to let her be forgotten. They drank, and the evening stretched on with stories and laughter, and the quiet joy of survival. Later, after Thomas had left and the city had settled into its nighttime rhythm, Olivia and Adrian stood on their balcony, watching the lights and thinking about futures. No regrets? Adrian asked, echoing the question from so many months ago. None. Olivia leaned into him, feeling his warmth, his strength, his steady presence. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be. Who I'm supposed to be with. What I'm supposed to be doing. And what's that? Living. Fully, visibly, without apology. She looked up at him. Being someone who matters, who makes a difference, who honors the people she's lost by building something worth protecting. Adrian kissed her forehead, her cheek, her lips. You do. You have. Every day. They stood together in the darkness, 2 people who'd been forced together by conspiracy and had chosen to stay together by conscious decision. Partners, allies, family. The invisible daughter had become impossible to ignore. The collateral had become the key. And the marriage that started with betrayal had become a genuine partnership, built on trust, earned through sacrifice, chosen every single day. Somewhere, Olivia thought, her mother was watching and smiling. The end. Author's note. This story is dedicated to everyone who's ever been told they don't matter. You do. And when you finally claim your power, the world will never be the same.